Right, we're in the living room right now of Miss Rosie Darnell of Tatumsville, we'll call it, and we're continuing our oral history project for the State Archives in Frankfort, for the Murray State University Library, and for the Marshall County Library. This program is funded locally by WCBL. With us for our interview this afternoon is Shelby McCallum, who is in charge of the project, and my name is Ray Mofield. As I said, we're enjoying the comforts of a beautiful December day. It's almost like October as we make this tape. Let it be said the temperature is 54 degrees and the sun shining brightly. It's nice to be with you, Miss Rosie.
Well, it's good to have you in my home.
Do you object to telling how old you are?
No, I'm 71.
71 years old. Were you born in the county?
I was born near Hardin, Kentucky.
I've heard of that place.
I think you have too. Out close to the Barnett Cemetery.
Oh, that's exactly where I was born.
On a man's by the name of Frank Mathis owned the little place. It was one big room and a side room. And there was, I have two sisters older than me living, and I have four sisters younger than me living. So there's 7 of us girls. And I always tell them that when they come to Marshall County, if they don't know who they're talking to, they better not talk about one of us because they might be talking to us.
Well, I was born almost at that same spot on a farm that my dad rented from Jim Will Barnett.
I know Mr. Jim Will Barnett. I know them real well.
He had a little grocery store.
Down on, yeah.
And so you know where I came from.
Yes, and my parents knew your parents.
Yeah. It was listed as Hardin RFD 1, and so they always give Hardin as my birthplace, though I really wasn't born inside the city. Shelby used to talk about the heart of downtown Possum Trot.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't born in the heart of downtown Hardin.
All the things that's there now, where the house where I was born, there's a cedar tree and the well. I tell my children I was born in that briar patch down there.
Could you tell us whom your parents were?
My parents was John Collins, and he married Alice Johnson.
And do you remember either of your set of grandparents?
Oh, yes. I remember my grandma and grandpa Johnson. I remember my great-grandpa Johnson and my great-grandpa Lentz. That was my grandmother's father. And I remember my grandma Collins. My grandpa Collins died when my dad was 15 years old.
All right, you had a good knowledge of your grandparents. And do you know anything about the genealogy a good ways back? Did they come here from Virginia originally?
The Johnsons did. We have, and my grandmother Collins was a Cress, and we have the Cress family that goes back to the Revolutionary War.
Oh.
My great-great-great-grandpa fought in the Revolutionary War.
Well, you're eligible to be a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution then.
And my grandma Collins, she was a Cress, and she was raised right in the neighborhood where we were.
I knew Ray Cress, Java Cress.
They're my daddy's cousins, Ray and Hardin. And
oh, yeah.
Hardin was the older one. And
he later moved to Murray and worked in a
store
there.
Left Hardin and went to Murray.
One of his daughters married
my
Henry
grandmother, do you remember where the Lee Cress place was?
Yes.
Well, they were coming on towards where you were born. There was a log house set on the right of the road, a big log. It had 2 big rooms. There's a chiropractor has a building, home built there now. Now that's where my grandma Collins lived during the Civil War, and she's told us a lot of stories that things that happened. She was a teenage girl.
Could you remember any of those stories?
She told us about them. They were at a meal, and they put her on the horse and sent her to the mill with the corn. because they thought they wouldn't take her horse away from her. So they didn't. So she went to the mill and she come back. But the next day, they came and got her horse. And she said,
Now who was that?
that was the guerrillas.
Oh,
It wasn't the
Regular army, but
not the regular army. The guerrillas did more. As far as I know, she never did tell us anything about seeing any, but she did tell us how the guerrillas did. And she said her daddy raised a lot of sheep, and he would. They came there one evening and told him how many to have cooked the next day, and said he had them dressed and he had them cooked, and they come and eat them. But after the war, they found her horse over about Smithland, Kentucky, and she got it back.
well, I've heard the regular troops in many cases were, of course, bad. They foraged, they lived off the land, both north and south. But a lot of the guerrillas were simply outlaws.
That's what she said. She said as far as that, there was no fighting or anything. They just took what you had, just took what they wanted.
Under they knew most of the law-abiding citizens were in the army, were away from home, and so they. Now, from that neighborhood, where'd you go to school, Olive? Or?
No, I didn't go to school. I wasn't old enough. I moved to down in this section of the country on the second day of December 1915, and I was only 4-year-old. And my first school was over here at Stice Schoolhouse.
Yes.
And then I went. I started out when I was 6-year-old, and I wouldn't been 7 until November. Well, school was out in December, so they had so many in school I couldn't go that year. And I didn't start really. I wasn't legally started until I was 7-year-old. And I went 2 years at Stice, and then I went the rest of them at Locust Grove. And I graduated when I got my 8th grade diploma. You didn't drop out, you just quit. Because there was no buses and there was no way to go, and the closest high school was 5 miles. So I went to Benton hosier mill and worked a while, and I come back, and it just seemed like it was a link out of my life, so I told him I wanted to go to high school, and I'll never forget my dad.
Did you know my mother-in-law, Ruth Height Blumenberg?
I sure did.
I think she worked at that hosier mill.
Yes, I knew Ruth Blumenberg, or Ruth Height. She was then, and but when I'll never forget what my dad said when I told him I wanted to go to high school. He carried me to the door and he said, "Now it's a long road from here to Giversville. It's 5 miles." And Mr. Holland Rose used to say the way the crow flew.
Yeah.
So I went 4 years. And I went 2 of those years that I walked every day, and I wasn't late a morning and didn't miss a day. And I'd think of the evening.
That's an amazing record.
I think of the evening, well, I just can't go back tomorrow, but, oh, well, when I was a sophomore and the little boy was a freshman, why, we kind of made eyes at each other, and I've been living with nearly 49 years now.
You mean
So-
you married that fellow?
I sure did.
Yeah.
Nearly
Well,
49 years.
So you had a courting period during school days.
Yes, but it wasn't like the court nowadays. We didn't see each other every night and every day, and just, well, when we was in school we did and wrote notes, but he'd come on weekends, on Saturday night, Sunday evening, and had to go home at 9 o'clock though. That was bedtime. So, but I'm not sorry that I went to school, because it's helped me a lot with raising our family, and then I've been Sunday school teacher since I was 16-year-old, and that's been a lot of help.
Almost a record, I'd say.
That's
Must
been
be.
a lot of help. So,
You've enjoyed the children.
oh yes, and I love children. I always wanted to be a school teacher, but it seemed like everything that I did, it was against being a school teacher. So there was an opening for a cook at the Giversville School, and I applied for it, and I got it, and those children were my life until for about 11 years I cooked, and then, well, I eat too much and had a heart problem and had to quit. So, but they all still respect me and still love me, and I do them too. And it just does me so much good when I hear one of them doing good.
That's the joy of being a teacher. I've enjoyed it myself. I worked 14 years before I went into college and university teaching, but the joy, I guess, of a teacher is to hear of your students doing well.
We have, you know, being a big family too. We didn't have a lot of money. Well, didn't anybody have a lot of money back then? We didn't even know there was a depression because that's what we was used to living. But my dad was.
You were never starving then.
No, we never went hungry. And my dad, there was a lot of fun about him. Now, he was strict. We respected him. We had to mind him. But all of the work was play. We'd go to, being the boy, we just had one brother, and he was killed in World War II, and he was next to the baby. And there were 7 girls older than him, but one of them died in infancy. But we'd go to the field, and if we were sucking tobacco, he'd lay off so many hills, and we'd race to see who'd get theirs done the quickest.
You make a game out of it.
Making a game out of it. All of life was like that.
Rosie, you mentioned something that reminded me. I wish I could think of the name of the town. But there's a little town out from Fulton, Kentucky, and when President Roosevelt ordered every bank in the United States closed, that was the only bank that didn't observe the order. And they didn't have any telephone service, and they were on a muddy dirt road, and they didn't know there was a bank holiday. And that's Gal Wilkins' wife is from there. I can't think of the name of it, but that's the only bank that didn't close.
Well, I was going to school at Giversville that time. As I say, I didn't start high school till I was almost 18. I graduated when I was 21 years old. And I wasn't valedictorian of the class, but I was salute-torn. And I think I had $5 to buy my dress-up clothes for graduation, and that was plenty.
I remember my mother making a dress one time. She was a rather small woman, petite, 5'4", and didn't weigh very much. And she made a dress, I remember. She bought the material from Montgomery Ward. It was on sale for 7 cents a yard. It was 80 square per kilo, Colonial as their cheapest brand, I think. And so that cost 21 cents, and she estimated that the thread and so on was a nickel. So it cost her 25 cents to make, I thought, a pretty dress.
Well, the first dress that my husband ever bought me, it was material, and he bought 3 yards, and it's 8 cents a yard. So that was 24 cents. But I used to be small. I weighed 109 pounds when I married. He's fed me good.
Yeah. What did your husband do while you were at school and so on? Was he a farmer?
Well, he was at school too. My husband's at school too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, later, was he a
butcher,
baker, candlestick maker, farmer?
When we first married, he just worked wherever he could get a job. He worked for his uncle on the truck hauling ice, and we went to a funeral home the other day, and this woman said, well, my mother liked you for your ice man, said you didn't chip her ice box up, and said the other one chipped her ice box up. But he farmed, and then in 1951, he went to work for Pittsburgh Metallurgical, and he worked there 25 years, and he retired. And, of course, we've lived here for, will be 39 years in February since we
You
moved
never
to this
did
place.
leave the county and go to Detroit
I never did leave the
and so on.
county. All the other girls did, but I was always close enough to my mother and daddy that I could walk and go home. And his father lived with us 27 years.
Could you tell us what your favorite subject was in school?
Math.
Mathematics.
Math, yes. I love math. And I like foreign language. We had Latin, and it was fun to work the put Latin into English.
A mo, a mas, a mot, a mamos, a mais, or something or other. I think I'm mixing Spanish.
How about Ars gratia artis?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know
Art for
that.
art's sake, yeah. The Metro Go and Mayor slogan. I remember that when the
But,
old lion
as
roared.
I say, we lived in, you know, we were just poor folks, and back then you didn't have money to buy wallpaper and paper your houses and all, so our house was papered with newspapers. You know,
But
we
that-
just take flour and water and boil the water and put the flour in it and thicken it and smear it on newspaper and paste it on the walls. Well, all of us children, except the two youngsters, learned how to read. But we had a game, we'd call it Come, She Come. I don't know where it got its name or anything, but first we'd start out with the big headlines, and we'd hunt those headlines. And then after we got where we could hunt the headlines and learned how to spell them and all, we got the smaller print. And that's the way we learned to read.
So you amused yourself that way.
Yes, we did.
Well, what about other amusements when you were young? Did neighbors sort of visit one another?
Oh, yes. It wasn't nothing to look out on Sunday morning and see a road full of coming to the house.
Yeah.
And then we played games. We'd play town ball. That was the main, you know how.
Similar to baseball.
Similar to baseball, only you could cross them out.
Yeah.
And then you had to get everybody out on one side before the other side could take the bat. And then we had a game they called Two-Eyed Cat. And there's just two people that would, one stand one end, one the other, and there'd be one in the middle that would pitch it, the ball, and they'd hit it. And when they hit it 3 times, they had to change places. But they'd try to get that ball and get them out.
Mm-hmm.
That was,
Did you ever hear of Red Rover?
yes, and we used to call it Hoop Over the River.
Yeah.
Sugarloaf Town, we used to play.
Yeah.
They call it charades now,
Yeah.
and that was what we called it.
What you trade?
Yeah,
Knock a man down or something like that.
yeah. And
then they'd have
now
Wolfie? Wolf over the river? Or
yeah,
something?
Wolf Over the River. That's right. We call it Hoop Over the River. They call it Wolf Over the River, and you try to catch them,
Mhm.
you know. And we used to play that at school. And I remember one time we were on a picnic down at Riverview, we called it, and Osie's sister was of the whole school's down there. And the principal was trying to catch her, and he just got a hold of her dress and just ripped the skirt off of the way she kept going. And we just pushed out on slip, and it was all right. We made the day. So we just had, and then.
Did you ever go anywhere to sit till bedtime?
Yes. I started to say there was
No radio.
no, we didn't have a radio till 1941. We just had electricity. Oh, let's see, in 34, I guess. No, not 34. We was married in 34. And, see, our baby is 36-year-old, and he was 2-year-old when we got electricity.
I guess that's when REA came.
Yes, when REA came. Well, it was up the road further, but it hadn't come on down this way. We'd go, as I started to say, there was one family in our neighborhood that had a girl that's my age, and she had glaucoma, and back then they didn't know how to treat it and all, and she lost both her eyes, just bursted. And she picked a guitar and sang. And that's where, every Sunday evening, that's where we'd go. And she'd pick the guitar and we'd all sing. And we had singings in the neighborhood, and old music, of course. My daddy, if he was going to lead the singing, he'd whistle. He'd get his tune by whistling.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of the others had little music forks that they used. And we had pie suppers, and we had...
Tell us how a pie supper operated.
Well, the girls all made pies and they carried them, and they put them up to auction them off.
And you bought your favorite girlfriend's
Yes,
pie.
and if somebody knowed who it was, well, they could run it away up there, make you run it away up there. And they'd run somebody for the prettiest girl, and you'd have to put money. Of course, it's just betting, but we did it. Yeah, did it anyway. And of course, in a way it was betting, in a way it wasn't. In a way it was, fundraising. And some of the other games that we played, I remember a lot of nights after supper. In one place we lived, we had a big fireplace, and we would grow cotton to pad the quilts, and we'd sit down of a night, and we'd have, finally we got where they'd put them in her shoe. We'd put it in her shoe and see which one could get your shoe picked first,
Mm-hmm.
Well, they laid some down by the fire one night, and they found out if it got warm, well, the seed would come out quicker. So that's, you just...
That was a great discovery.
Yeah, it was. So and then we played a lot of games of sitting around the fire. We had one that, of course, you probably played even and odd. Everyone would have maybe 10 grains of corn apiece, and you'd say put so many in your hand, you'd say to the other one even or odd, and they'd say, if they said even and you had an even number, you had to give them all of it. But if it was odd, they had to give you one to make it even. And then we played one something like that. Of course, that learned us to add and subtract.
I went to my Uncle Rob Jackson's one time when I was a kid, and I don't remember exactly how it went, but it seemed like they had what they called an owl board. You ever...
I don't remember an owl board. I remember a fox and goose board. Now, we used to play fox and geese.
How did that go? I've played that too, but I've forgotten it.
Oh, it has, I drawed one sometime back to show them that still knew how, drawed something or something like that.
It was like checkers in a way?
Yes, in a way, but you just had 2 foxes, and you had 21 geese. And the geese could not move backwards, and the fox could jump any way.
Mm-hmm.
So if you let that fox, and it's just very hard to ever beat that fox, because he'd slip in behind and get them. Slip in behind and get them, forwards and backwards.
Yeah.
And then we played one, they called it the old gray, we used to say the old gray mile, and they'd say ride them, and we'd say how many miles, and they'd have to guess how many grains we had in our hands, And if they didn't guess, if they guessed more, well, they'd have to give us some, and if they guessed less, they'd have to give us enough to make what it was.
And when you ran out...
the one that had the most was the winner.
Won the game.
Yeah, won the game.
Oh, that's a little like our ham game.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Guess how many shots it takes. Yeah.
Yeah. And another one, we used to play thimble. Did you ever play thimble?
I don't remember that.
This Halloween, we had a party over at our activities building at church, and a lot of them didn't want to go, couldn't go on the hayride, the smaller ones, and so they was getting grumpy and they didn't have anything to do, and I said, let's play thimble. And they didn't know what it was. Well, you just put your hands together, clap your hands together like that, and we always use Mother's thimble. And one would be the one that had the thimble, and the rest would sit in a row, but one would follow that one, and that was a dummy.
Mm-hmm.
And she had to guess then which hand. She'd take her hands and go down through that and, leave the thimble. Well, you had to guess who had the thimble.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd say thimble, if the one that guessed, if she didn't guess it, you'd say thimble rise, and then they'd get up, and she had to go again. But if she guessed it, the one that had the thimble, got the thimble, had to get up and go. Had to be the dummy. So
all that was, of course...
Yeah, just... through
inexpensive, but
sure,
yet
a lot of fun.
Sure.
And we played nickel in the light. If we had a nickel, if we didn't, sometime it was a button. And we'd all hide our eyes. They'd put that button where it could be seen. Mm-hmm. And I remember one time they pinned. My mother had a pin or a needle one sticking in her dress, and they just put that button on that. Well, we had just looked and looked and looked before we could finally some of them found it.
I don't know if the girls played this very much or not, but I remember on maybe Sunday afternoon after church, and you'd gone somewhere for dinner, and the men would pitch washers. Did you ever see that?
Yes. I lost my washer pitcher this summer, Delbert Newton. He and I were the champions of Locust Grove for years. We were the buddies, and he died.
Well, they used to pitch
He died
washers
in
all
May.
the time in the courthouse.
He died in May.
I remember.
And we run, we had races, we had sack races, we played marbles. You know them, I never could shoot a marble though, hurt my thumb. And we'd have broad jump and high jump, and Hazel Dunn over here, Woodrow Dunn's wife, was champion high jumper. She could jump lots higher than she was tall. And and we played on lots of times on Saturday nights, or we'd play party plays, you know, just an old time play party. And the houses wasn't big, but if we went to somebody's house and they thought we wanted to play, they'd just take the beds down.
Chase the buffalo.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we chased the buffalo and blacked the boots and
Make them shine
Yeah.
goodbye and a goodbye.
Yeah, that's true. We just had, and then of course Rook come in the picture. Then went to playing Rook and all, but I never could play Rook. I just never was good at it. Didn't know how to bid or anything, and I never did really win. But one night, and I was sitting with my back to the mirror, and my partner was facing me, and he could look in the mirror and see all my cards, and we won every game.
What kind of, you made candy, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we made taffy candy, and we made molasses more than anything else, because we had a lot of molasses. My daddy put up 20-gallon molasses to do us for a year. And, of course, you'd put it on and cook it longer and longer, and then maybe put a pinch of soda in it and stir it, and then put it out, and it began to get cold. You'd take a hold of it and stretch it.
Did the neighbors have work days?
Oh,
They'd
yes.
Kill hogs together?
Yes, we did everything together. And if there's any sickness, I remember, I guess it was in 1921, my mother, the first boy the only boy was born into our family. And my mother was sick all last summer, and my daddy was too. And I remember the neighbors coming in and putting out the crop for us.
Shelby, we have 3 more minutes. Do you want to get in on a few questions here?
Yes, I've known Rosie for a long time and admired her and known her husband. And I've been to her church quite often in the past. And I'd like to ask her this question. I've asked it to several people with whom we've discussed oral history of Marshall County today. If you had your life to live over again, would you again choose to stay here and live in Marshall County?
Oh, yes.
No question about it.
No question.
Well, you make it 100%. How many interviews have we done today, Ray?
I believe it's 9.
9 or 10, and every one has indicated that this is where they want to be. And I think that's mighty fine, and we do appreciate your hospitality and inviting us in.
And I don't, I'll tell you something
And
else.
you haven't said a word. Do you want to get in on this act? We've got about 60 seconds left.
He got the girl.
I just noticed one mistake that she made. She said I wasn't work at
51.
Pittsburgh in 51, and it was 50.
I just missed it 1 year.
Well, she's coming pretty close. Is that the first mistake she's made in 49 years? No. Well, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Ray Mofield now.
I don't, something else. I don't begrudge the people coming in and living, but sometimes, I guess maybe I'm getting older, I get kind of aggravated when they act like that the one that's lived here all the time don't know nothing.
Yeah.
You know, if you know what I'm
That
talking
never
about.
sets too well in any
Yeah.
society, does it?
Well, how much time have we got?
Oh,
You know, there's an old story, Rosie, that the people headed west on a wagon train, and they stopped at this trading store, and they said, how are we going to find the folks down the road in the next town? And he said, well, how'd you find the folks in the town you left back east? He said, they were all meaner than hell. Well, he said, you'll find them the same way down the road. The next people came along, he asked them the same question. They asked the storekeeper, how are we going to find folks down the road? And he said, well, how did you find them back where you left?
friendly as they could be. He says, well, you'll find them the same way down there when you get to the next town.
Maybe that's the way those people that come in.
I think so.
Because I know
You get
everybody
good
around
ones and
here.
you get bad ones.
Oh, yes, everybody, though, is so nice. If there's sickness or death or troubles of any kind, people are just so nice, especially in Tatumsville community. They're just, well, they're all over Marshall County.
Well, we thank you so much, Miss Rosie Darnell. Shelby McCallum and Ray Mofield have been conducting the interview on behalf of the statewide project for the State Archives in Frankfort, Murray State University's Pogue Oral History Library, and for the Marshall County Library here in Marshall County, Kentucky. And that concludes our interview for today.
I was going to tell you, I've been a first basketball I ever saw.
How are you, young man?
21.
Yeah?
And I've been a basketball fan ever since.
Yeah,
61 years.